let's see here. Um, to start off today, we do have sad news in the world of acting. An actor named Ed Gale, if you don't know who he is, Ed Gale was the one that did the voice to Chucky in the Child's Play movies. He just died, 61 years old. Um, but I didn't recognize that was the guy's name that played him. But anyway, but he did a couple Child Play movies and he died. But today we're going to get more into. Um, Today I want to break down the Maya civilization. Um, the Maya civilization was a Mesoamerican civilization that existed from antiquity to the early modern period. Um, so it's known for its ancient temples and glyphs, which means script. Now the Maya script is the most sophisticated and highly developed writing system in the pre-Columbian America civilization. Now the civilization is also noted for its art, architecture, mathematics, calendar, and astronomical system. Now the Maya civilization developed in the Maya region, an area that today comprises southeastern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and the western portions of Honduras and El Salvador. Um, it includes the northern lowlands of the Yucatan Peninsula and the Guatemalan highlands of the Sierra Madre, the Mexican state of Chiapas, the southern Guatemala, El Salvador, and the southern lowlands of the Pacific Plain. Now, today, their descendants, known collectively as the Maya, number well over 6 million individuals, and they speak more than 28 surviving Mayan languages, and they reside nearly in the same area as their ancestors did. Now, now the Arch now the Archaic period before 2000 BC saw the first development in agriculture and the earliest villages. Now, the pre-classic period between 2000 BC to about 250 AD saw the establishment of the first complex societies in the Maya region, and the cultivation of the of the staple crops of the Maya diet, including maize, beans, squashes, and chili peppers. Don't even know what that is. Um, let's get down here. Um, Now, the first Maya cities developed around 750 BC, and by 500 BC, these cities possessed monumental architecture, including large temples with elaborate facades. The hieroglyphic writing was being used in the Maya region by the 3rd century BC. But in the late pre-classic, a number of large cities developed in the Piton Basin, and the city of Kama Kam Kam Kamina Julia, I don't know how you say that, um, rose to prominence in the Guatemalan highlands beginning around 250 AD. The classic period is largely defined as when the Maya were raising sculpted monuments with long count dates. Um, Now this period saw the Maya civilization develop in many city-states linked by a complex trade network. Now, in the Maya lowlands, two great rivals, the cities of Tikal and Calakmul, um, became powerful. Now, the classic period also saw the intrusive intervention of the central Mexican city of Teotihuacan and Maya dynastic politics. Now, in the 9th century, um, now okay, so in the 9th century, there was a widespread political collapse in the central Maya region, resulting in a civil war between them, abandonment of the cities, and northward shift of population. Now, the post-classic period saw the rise of the Chichen Itza in the north and the expansion of the aggressive Quiche kingdom in the Guatemalan highlands. In the 16th century, the Spanish Empire colonized the Mesoamerican region, and a lengthy series of campaigns saw the fall of the Nashpatan, the last Maya city, back in 1697. And these are some of the temples that they had in the Maya civilization. You can see this right here. Um, this is El Castillo and the Shishan Itza and the Temple of Great Jaguar at Tikal. Um, and you can see that right here. Those are temples in the Maya civilization. Um, I've always been fascinated with the Maya civilization. Um, Now there's other stuff here. Yeah, that's temples in the Maya civilization. Um, so now roll. There's nothing wrong with psychedelic mushrooms. I've done it a long time ago. Um, Now, rule during the classic period centered on the concept of the divine king, who was thought to act as a mediator between mortals and the supernatural realm. Now, kingship was usually, but not exclusively, um, patrilineal, and power normally passed to the eldest son after the father died. A prospective king was expected to be a successful war leader as well as a ruler. Now, closed patronage systems were the dominant force in Maya politics, although how patronage affected the political makeup of a kingdom varied from city state to city state. Now, by the late classic period, the um, the the aristocracy had grown in size, reducing the previously exclusive power of the king. Now, the Maya developed sophisticated art forms using both perishable and non-perishable materials, which included wood, jade, obsidian, ceramics, sculpted stone monuments, stucco, and finely painted murals. Um, Now, the Maya cities had tended to expand organically. Now, the city centers comprised ceremonial and administrative complexes that were surrounded by an irregularly shaped sprawl of residential districts. Now, different parts of a city were often linked by causeways. Um, Architecturally, city buildings included palaces, pyramid temples, ceremonial ball courts, and structures specifically aligned for the astronomical observation. Um, Now, the Maya elite were literate, and they developed a complex system of hieroglyphic writing, meaning that they were smart. Um, Now, theirs was the most advanced writing system in the pre-Columbian America. Now, the Maya recorded their history and ritual knowledge in screenfold books, of which only three uncontested examples remain. The rest have been destroyed by the Spanish people. Now, in addition, a great many examples of Maya texts can be found on the ceramics. The Maya developed a highly complex series of interlocking ritual calendars, and they employed mathematics that included one of the earliest known instances of the explicit zero in human history. As part of their religion, the Maya practiced human sacrifice. Um, Now, Maya is a modern term used to refer collectively to the various peoples that inhabited this region. Um, as Maya people have not had a sense of common ethnic identity or political unity for the vast majority of their history. Um, Not even close. Um, um, there's an inbred troll on here. Pantelis. Basically, if you want to talk about fat, take a look at Trump. I'm only 150 pounds. That's not fat at all. Um, Now, early Spanish and Mayan language colonial sources in the Yucatan Peninsula used the term Maya to denote both the language spoken by the Yucatec Maya and the area surrounding the then abandoned city of Mayapan. Now, the term Maya was derived from the city of Mayapan. Some colonial Mayan language sources also used Maya to refer to other Maya groups, sometimes pejoratively in reference to the Maya groups that are more resistant to Spanish rule. Um, Now, the Maya civilization occupied a wide territory that included um, southeastern Mexico and northern Central America. Now, this area included the entire Yucatan Peninsula and all of the territory now in the modern countries of Guatemala and Belize, as well as the western portions of Honduras and El Salvador. Now, most of the peninsula is formed by a vast plain with few hills or mountains and a generally low coastline. Um, Now, the territory of the Maya covered a third of the Mesoamerica, and the Maya were engaged in a dynamic relationship with neighboring cultures that included the Olmecs and the Mixtecs. Now, the Teo now you also had the Teotihuacan and the Aztecs. Now, during the early classic period, the Maya cities of Tikal and and Kanai Nojuyu were key Maya in a network that extended into the highlands of central Mexico. Now, there was a strong Mayan presence at the oh crap, hold on. There we go. Now, there was a strong Maya presence at the Titila of the Teotihuacan, the Maya city of Chichen Itza, the distant Toltec capital of Tula, had an especially close relationship. Now, the Piton region consists of a densely forested low-lying limestone plain. A chain of 14 lakes runs across the central drainage basin of Piton. In the south, and to the south, the plain gradually rises towards the Guatemalan highlands. The dense Maya forest covers the northern Piton and Belize, most of Quintana Roo, southern Campeche, and a portion of the south of the Yucatan state. Now, the farther north, the vegetation turns to the lower forest, consisting of dense scrub. Now, the literal zone of Soconusco lies to the south of the Sierra Madre, and consists of a narrow coastal plain and the foothills of the Sierra Madre. Now, here is a map of where it's located at. If you see this right here. This is supposed to be the map of the Maya area of where they lived at. Now, shit, fucker. Okay, here. Now, the Maya Highlands extends eastwards from the Chiapas into Guatemala, reaching their highest in the Sierra de los Cuchamontanes, their major pre-Columbian population center, were they were in the largest highland valleys, such as the Valley of Guatemala and the Quetzaltenango Valley. Now, in the southern highlands, a belt of volcanic cones runs parallel to the Pacific coast. Now, the highlands extend northwards into Verapaz and gradually descend to the east. Now, the history of the Maya civilization is divided into three principal periods: the pre-classic, the classic, and the post-classic. Now, these were preceded by the Archaic period, during which the first settled villages and early developments into agriculture emerged. The modern scholars regarded these periods as arbitrary divisions of Maya chronology, rather than indicative of cultural evolution or decline. Now, the definitions of the start and end dates of period spans can vary by as much as a century, depending on who the author is that wrote it. Now, here you got these right here that show it. So starting here, you got the Maya chronologically. You got the Archaic from 8,000 to 2,000 BC. Then you got the early pre-classic from 2000 to 1000 BC. Then you got the middle pre-classic. The early middle would be the 1000 to 600 BC, and the late middle pre-classic from 600 to 350 BC. And then you got three breakdowns of the late pre-classic. The early late pre-classic was from 350 to 1 BC. The late pre-classic from 1 BC to 159 AD, and the terminal pre-classic from AD 159 to 250. Then you got classic. Then you got the early classic from AD 250 to 550 AD. The late classic from 550 to 830 AD. Terminal classic from 830 to 950 AD. Then you got early classic from 950 to 1280, and then you got the late post classic from 1200 to 1539 AD, and then you got 1511 to 1697 as the contact period. Then you got the pre-classic period. And this is inside the temples, possibly. I can't really tell, but yeah. So now we're getting into the pre-classic period of the Mayan civilization. The Maya developed their first civilization in the pre-classic period. Scholars continue to discuss when this era of Maya civilization began, but Maya occupation at Pueblo, which is modern Belize, has been carbon dated to around 2600 BC. Now, settlements were established around 1800 BC in the Soconusco region of the Pacific Coast, and the Maya were already basically cultivating the staple crops of maize, beans, squash, and chili pepper, which has been very big. This period was characterized by sedentary communities, and the introduction of pottery and fire clay figurines began. Now, during the middle pre-classic period, small villages began to grow to form cities. Now, Nakbi and the Petan Department of Guatemala is the earliest well-documented city in the Maya lowlands. Now, where large structures have been dated to around 750 BC. Now, the northern lowlands of Yucatan were widely settled by the middle pre-classic. Now, by approximately 400 BC, early Maya rulers were raising stelae, which I'm not sure what that is. Now, a developed script was already being used in the Piton by the 3rd century BC. In the late pre-classic period, the enormous city of El Mirador grew to cover approximately 16 square kilometers, which is 6 miles. Although not as large, Tikal was already a significant city by around 350 BC. Now, in the highlands, the Kami Naljuyu emerged as a principal center in the late pre-classic. Now, the Takawak Abaji and the Chocola were two of the most important cities on the Pacific coastal plain. Now, and the Kamchen grew to become an important site in the northern Yucatan. The late pre-classic cultural fluorescence collapsed in the 1st century AD, and as many of the great Maya cities of the epoch were abandoned, the cause of this collapse is not known to this date. Now, here is an actual carving, and you can see that right here. That's an actual carving of a statue. That's a Stele D from the Kuriga, presenting in the Chan Yopat. I'm not sure if that town is even still there. But yeah. So now this is during the classic period. Now the classic period is largely defined as the period during which the lowland Maya raised dated monuments using the long count calendar. Now this period marks the peak of large-scale construction and urbanism. the recording of monumental inscriptions, and demonstrated significant intellectual and artistic development. Particularly in the southern lowland regions, the classic period, the Maya political landscape has been likened to that of the Renaissance in Italy or classical Greece. Um, with multiple city-states engaged in a complex network of alliances and enmities, the largest cities had about 50,000 to 120,000 people, and they were linked to networks of subsidiary sites. Um, Now, during the early classic period, the cities throughout the Maya region were influenced by the great metropolitics of Teotihuacan in the distant valley of Mexico. Um, now, in AD 378, the Teotihuacan, which is a decisively intervened at Tikal and other nearby cities, deposed their rulers and installed a new Teotihuacan-backed dynasty. Now, this intervention was led by Siyash Kayak, who was which means born of fire. Um, and he arrived at Tikal in early 378 AD. Now, the king of Tikal, Shak Tak Ishak, died on the same day, suggesting a violent takeover. So, a year later, Sayash Kayak oversaw the installation of a new king, somebody named Yax Noon. This led to a period of political dominance when Tikal became the most powerful city in the central lowland of the Maya civilization. Um, Now, Tikal's great rival was Calakmul, another powerful city in the Patan Basin. Now, Tikal and Calakmul both developed extensive systems of allies and vassals. Lesser cities that entered one of these networks gained prestige from their association with the top-tier city, and they maintained a peaceful relations with members of the network. Tikal and Calakmul engaged in the maneuvering of their alliance networks against each other. Now, at various points during the classic period, one or other of these powers would gain a strategic victory over its great rival, resulting in respective periods of florescence and decline. Um, in 629, Balaj, who was a son of the Tikal king, was sent to find a new city at Dul's palace, and I don't have Down syndrome, so you might try again. Um, Apparently, as an outpost to extend Tikal's power beyond the reach of Calakmul. For the next 2 decades, he fought loyalty for his brother and overlord at Tikal. Uh, I did answer your question. I don't have Down syndrome, and yes, I am a guy. So go fuck off. Um, no, I don't. I've never been to Tucson. Um, we're talking about the Maya civilization. Um, there are 3 trolls in the group in the chat room here. Um, Not really, not today. Um, Maya civilization dated back to Mexico and everything like that, and they were very popular back then. I don't think that was. Now, for the next 2. Now here's a couple other ones. Maya civilization is this. You can see some of these temples here. Yeah, they were big back then. They were like a big thing. So you got the temple right here. and then you got another temple down here. Yeah, but Wikipedia is not always accurate either. Sometimes they leave stuff out because um, I've never been to Mexico, so no. Um, right now, I would not visit Mexico due to the cartels being there, like the drug cartels. Um, I don't know who you're talking about as a pedophile, but it's not me because I'm not that. Um, in the southeast, I do know some Spanish, but I would not go because of the drug cartels. Right now, the drug cartels have taken over. Oh yeah, I know. I heard of. Are you talking about Muhammad? Yeah, I know. I've heard of Muhammad, but never done a video on him, and I could probably do one down the line. Give a background on him. Yeah. So so let's get back. Thanks, Jared, for subbing. Yeah, I never really took the train, and I really don't feel safe on a train. Um, but in 1629, Balaj, like I was saying, was a son of the Tikal king, and he was sent to find a new city at Dos Palas in the pretext Botun region, apparently as an outpost to extend Tikal's power beyond the reach of Calakmul. Now, for the next 2 years, um, um, now for the next 2 decades, he fought loyalty for his brother and overlord at Tikal. In 648, not always, not especially with me being in Illinois, the trains out here are not clean. Um, now, in 648, King Yuknun Chin of Calakmul captured Balaj. Yuknun Shinin the second then reinstated Balaj upon the throne of Dos Palas as his vassal. He therefore served as a loyal ally of Calakmul. Now, in the southeast, Copan was the most important city. And its pre-classic period dynasty was I'm in Illinois, the United States. Yeah, possibly if I ever decided to. Um, yeah, there's a lot of places. There's a lot of ruins to visit. Yep, you're talking about this right here. This is one of them. Um, this is Jettle X. If you're talking about this shit, that's this one right here. This is the most important city in the northern Maya region. This thing. Are you talking about this right here? Um, yeah. Um, like this right here. Not much. Um, but I've always been fascinated with their history. I used to watch Ancient Aliens, and they would talk about like the building of the temples and the hieroglyphics, and talking about. Oh, this one? Yeah, it might be. I don't know. But yeah. It might not be. I don't know for sure. Um, there's a movie called Emperor's New Groove, but I've never seen it. But I've heard of it. Um, so, there's one thing that still amazes me when it comes to these pyramids and everything, especially like Stonehenge being built in the Mayan civilization and the pyramids built in Egypt. How were they able to move thousands of pounds of material without having mechanical equipment then? Um, that's still a thing that amazes me today. Um, so in the southeastern Copan is the most important city. Um, its classic period dynasty was founded in 426 by a guy named Kanish Yaks Kayak Mo. The new king had strong ties with the central Batan and the Teotihuacan. Copan reached the height of its cultural and artistic development during the rule of the during a certain rule, and it ruled from 695 to 738. Probably. Well, I'm talking about Mayans, um, but I also mentioned the pyramids being built in Egypt and what they had used back then. Yep, that's another thing too. The Easter Island, they had a lot of statues up front that were Yep. This one king's reign ended catastrophically when he was captured by his vassal king, Keok Yopat of Quirigia. Now, the captured lord of Copan was taken back to Quirigia and was decapitated in a public ritual. Yeah, that is pretty true. Um, it's likely that this coup was backed by Calakmul in order to weaken a powerful ally of Tikal. Now, Palenque and the Yaxchilian were the most powerful cities in the Uso Macinto region. Now, in the highlands, in the higher valley of Guatemala, they were already a sprawling city by 300. Now, in the north of the Maya area, Coba was the most important capital of that city. Um, Now, during the 9th century AD, the central Maya region suffered a major political collapse that was marked by the abandonment of many cities. Yeah, I love Dunkin' Donuts. Um, I don't even know what that is. Um, so, I always get my caramel coffee from Dunkin'. Um, now, now, and it ended and it basically it ended the ending of dynasties and a northward shift in activity. Now, nobody can really accept. Nobody has an accepted theory to explain the collapse of this. Um, Probably about a year or two since I started this channel. Um, I've only been doing this channel for about 2 years, at least. Um, now, nobody could explain. Okay, so like I was saying, nobody could explain why some of these cities fell, but they did. Um, and to this day, nobody has an explanation. But it likely had a combination of causes, including an endemic internecine warfare, overpopulation resulting in severe environmental degradation, and drought. Um, During this period, known as the Terminal Classic, the northern cities of Chichen Itza and Uxmal showed increased activity. Major cities in the northern Yucatan Peninsula were inhabited long after the cities of the southern lowlands ceased to raise monuments. Um, Now, the classic Maya social organization was based on the ritual authority of the ruler rather than central control of trade and food distribution. Now, this this model was poorly structured to respond to was poorly structured to respond to changes because the ruler's actions were limited by tradition to such activities as construction, ritual, and warfare. Now, this only served to exacerbate systemic problems. Now, by the 9th and 10th century, this resulted in a collapse of this resulted in the collapse of this system of rulership. Um, I'm not even disabled, so not even retarded or anything. But obviously, I know a lot of Trump supporters are. Um, now, now in the northern Yucatan, individual rule was replaced by a ruling council formal that was formed by elite lineages. In the southern Yucatan and central Patan, um, kingdoms declined in western Bhutan and some other areas. The changes were catastrophic and they resulted in the rapid depopulation of the cities. Now, um, within a couple of generations, large swaths of the central Maya area were all but well abandoned, but both the capitals and their secondary centers were generally abandoned within a period of 50 to 100 years. Um, I love Mexican food. When it comes to tacos or burritos, yes, I take a bath every day. Um, I know Trump supporters don't bathe. Um, Now, both the capitals and their secondary centers were generally abandoned within a period of 50 to 100 years. Now, one by one, cities stopped sculpting dated monuments. The last long count date was inscribed at Tonia in the year. No, I'm not. Um, Inscribed at Tonia in 909. Now, stelae were no longer raised, and squatters moved into abandoned royal palaces. Um, Actually, no, I don't. I despise Trump. Now, one by one, cities stopped scripting dated monuments. Now, the last long count date was inscribed at Tonia in 909. Um, I doubt that. Um, they don't even work, so they don't even work, so probably couldn't afford it anyway. Now, stelae were no longer raised, and squatters moved into abandoned royal palaces. The Mesoamerican trade routes shifted, and they bypassed Bataan. Now, the post-classic period. Now we're gonna take a look at this one and try to blow up this picture. It is live. Um, that's what we're on is live stream. Now this is a part of this is on one of the post-classic Man Kingdom in the Guatemalan Highlands. In America, you're actually paying for it. You got a water bill, so actually, if you're in the United States, water is not free. You're paying for it basically to use it. Um, so that's one. I've done both. I've done weed and I've done alcohol, but I prefer weed. Um, that is my personal preference. Um, so now, although much reduced, a significant Maya presence remained in the post-classic period after the abandonment of the major. No, I've never been in a gang. Although much reduced, a significant Maya presence remained to the post-classic period after the abandonment of the major classic period cities. Now, the population. No, I've never been in a gang. I'm only 5'5". Um, I'm just, and basically, I do not. Um, Now, although much reduced, a significant. Um, now, although Now, although much reduced, a significant Maya presence remained. I don't. Um, I don't have tattoos on me, do I? Most gangbangers have tattoos. I don't have one tattoo. Um, Although much reduced, a significant Maya presence remained to the post-classic period after the abandonment of the major classic period cities. Um, Now, the population was particularly concentrated near permanent water sources. Unlike during previous cycles of contraction, abandoned lands were not quickly resettled in the post-classic. I do not. I've never fired a gun. I don't like needles anyway, so that's probably not going to happen. Um, I am not. I don't have a gun. Never had one. Um, unlike during previous cycles of contraction, abandoned lands were not quickly resettled. Like I said in the post-classic. Um, I am not. I've never even fired a gun, and I'm still to this day have never fired one because I don't like guns. Um, no. Um, now we got activity shifted in the northern lowlands and the Maya highlands. This may have involved migration from the southern lowlands because many post-classic Maya groups had migration myths. The Chichen Itza and its Puke neighbors declined dramatically in the 11th century. Um, neither. And this may represent the final episode of the classic period collapse. After the decline of the Chichen Itza, the Maya region lacked a dominant power until the rise of the city of Mayapan in the 12th century. Now, new cities arose near the Caribbean. It's pronounced P-U it might be Puck. P-U-U-C. I'm thinking that's what it is. I don't know. Now, new cities arose near the Caribbean and the Gulf Coast, and new trade networks were formed. Um, now, the post-classic period. Well, Trump's a piece of shit. That's what we know. That's what we know about him. Now, the post-classic period was marked by changes from the preceding classic period. Now, the once great city of the Cam, Cam Camni Naljuyu in the Valley of Guatemala was about nope, not even close. Now, the post-classic period was marked by changes from the preceding classic period. Now, the once great city of Kamanuji in the Valley of Guatemala was abandoned after continuous occupation of almost 2,000 years. Across the highlands and neighboring Pacific coast, long-occupied cities and exposed locations were relocated apparently due to proliferation of warfare. Now, nope, not even that. Um, now cities came to occupy more easily. Um, not even close. Cities came to occupy more easily defended hilltop locations, surrounded by deep ravines with ditch and wall defenses, sometimes supplementing the natural terrain. Um, I've never been in a gang. I would not even want to be a leader of one. Um, not a manifesto either. This is all not even close. I'm not even fat, so you're gonna have to try harder. Um, nope. Now, one of the most important cities in the Guatemalan highlands at this time was one called Q Marjac, the capital of the aggressive Quiche Kingdom. The government of Maya states, from the Yucatan to the Guatemalan highlands, was often organized as a joint rollback council. Um, yeah, I just can never be a gang leader. It's just not my thing. Not even close. 150 pounds is not even close to being fat. Um, I've never rolled with any gang. The government of Maya states from the Yucatan to the Guatemalan Highlands is often organized, like I said, as a joint rule by a council. However, in practice, one member of the council could act as their supreme ruler. Now, while the other members served that person as advisors. Now here's a Maya pen temple. Now let's blow this up, and you can see this. This is supposed to be a Maya pen temple. It's kind of cool there. So now the Maya pen was abandoned around 1448. I don't know if it is. Not even close. I haven't done drugs in a long time. Now the Maya pen was abandoned around 1448. After a period of political, social, and environmental turbulence. No, that's no. I'm not a member of a Trump of an inbreeding Trump gang. It does not. Now, Maya pen was abandoned around 1448 after a period of political, social, and environmental turbulence that in many ways echoed the classic period collapse in the southern Maya region. The abandonment of the city was followed by a period of prolonged warfare, disease, and natural disasters in the Yucatan Peninsula. I'm 5'4", and I weigh 150. No, never been. I don't do anything with Diddy at all. Don, I'm pretty sure that if you're 6'3", as you claim, you're probably over 200 pounds. I doubt that. Yeah, you're probably over 200 pounds. And I'm like I said, I'm 5'3", 5'4", and I weigh 150. And also the difference between me and a Trump supporter is that I exercise. Trump supporters do not. Now on the eve. Now let's go back here. Yeah, a lot of these cities were abandoned for I'm just stating the truth. That's just the logic of looking at it. That's why I stay in good shape, and my job is very physical. Now, Trump supporters, they just like to sit on their fat ass at home on their couch, fucking their sister, and that's what they do. Now, the Maya pen was abandoned around 1448 after a period of political, social, and environmental turbulence that in many ways echoed the classic period collapse. Yep, exactly. In many ways, this echoed the classic period collapse in the southern Maya region. Now, the abandonment of the city was followed by a period of prolonged warfare. No, that would be Trump supporters, and I'm not a Trump supporter. Now, even without a dominant regional capital, the early Spanish explorers reported wealthy coastal cities and thriving marketplaces. During the late post-classic, the Yucatan Peninsula was divided into a number of independent provinces. During the late post-classic, the Yucatan Peninsula was divided into a number of independent provinces that shared a common culture, but varied in internal, what they call socio-political organization. Now, on the eve of the Spanish conquest, the highlands of Guatemala were dominated by several powerful Maya states. Basically, I just work out from home. I do a lot of walking through the woods. Since behind my house there's woods. I basically walk through the woods a lot. If you're looking for an inbred fish dog, if you're looking for an inbred gang fish dog, then check out Trump supporters. Um, the Quiche had carved out a small empire covering a large part of the western Guatemalan highlands, um, and the neighboring Pacific coastal plain. However, in the decades before the Spanish conquest of the Cacical kingdom had been steadily eroding the kingdom of the Quiche. Um, now we're getting into um, well, now the thing is with no, the difference between me and the Trump supporters is that I'm not inbred like them, so you're gonna have to try harder. Um, Now, in 1511, a Spanish caravel was wrecked in the Caribbean, and about a dozen survivors made landfall on the coast of Yucatan. No, not even close. I'm not a Trump supporter. Technically, I'm not even a religious person. So but I badmouth Trump supporters because they're inbred and because they don't like to work. Um, now, now in 1511, um, a Spanish caravel was wrecked in the Caribbean, and about a dozen survivors made landfall on the coast of Yucatan, but they were seized by a Maya lord, and most of them were sacrificed. Because I work early in the morning. Since I work early in the morning, since I work from 4 in the morning to 10, I don't even sit on my ass. Now they were seized by my own lord, and most were sacrificed. Although 2 escaped from 1517 to 1519. 3 now according to Illinois, anything 30 hours or more is considered full time. Um, now, um, now from 1517 to 1519, 3 separate Spanish expeditions explored the Yucatan coast and engaged in a number of battles with the Maya inhabitants. Now, after the Aztec capital, Tenochtitlan fell to the Spanish in 1521. Hernan Cortes dispatched Pedro de Alvarado to Guatemala with 180 cavalry, 300 infantry, 4 cannons, and warriors from central Mexico. Um, Now they arrived in Soconusco in 1523. The Quiche capital, Marjac, fell to Alvarado in 1524. Shortly afterwards, the Spanish were invited as allies into the Ixamishi, the capital city of the Cachical Maya region. Good relations did not last due to the excessive Spanish demands for gold as tribute, and the city was abandoned a few months later. Now, this was followed by the fall of the Zakulu, the Maya capital, in 1525. Now, Francisco de Tomajo and his son Francisco the Younger launched a long series of campaigns against the politics of the Yucatan Peninsula in 1527. Now, and finally, they completed the conquest of the northern portion of the peninsula in 1546. Now, this left only the Maya kingdoms of the Patam Basin independent. In 1697. Martin de Ursula launched an assault on the Itza capital, Nachpatan, and the last independent Maya city fell to the Spanish. Um, um, Hold on here. Now, the Spanish conquest stripped away most of the defining features of the Maya civilization. Now, however, the many Maya villagers remained remote to Spanish colonial authority and for the most part continued to manage their own affairs. the Maya communities and the nuclear family maintained their traditional day-to-day life. Now, the basic Mesoamerican diet of maize and beans continued, although the agricultural output was improved by the introduction of steel tools. Now, the traditional crafts, such as weaving, ceramics, and baskets, continued to be practiced. The community markets and trade in local products continued long after the conquest. Now, at times, the colonial administration encouraged the traditional economy in order to extract tribute in the form of ceramics or cotton textiles. Now, although these were usually made to European specifications, the Maya beliefs and language proved resistant to change despite vigorous efforts by Catholic missionaries. The 260-day Tzolk'in ritual calendar continues to be used in modern Maya communities in the highlands of Guatemala and Chiapas, and millions of Mayan language speakers inhabit the territory in which their ancestors developed their civilization. Now, here's another picture of a drawing by Frederick. Now this is a drawing by Frederick Catherwood of the nunnery complex at Uxmal. So that there. Now, the agents of the Catholic Church wrote detailed accounts of the Maya civilization in support of their efforts of Christianization and absorption of the Maya into the Spanish Empire. Now, this was followed by various Spanish priests and the colonial officials who left descriptions of ruins that they visited in the Yucatan and Central America. Now, in 1839, the American traveler and writer John Lloyd Stephens set out to visit a number of Maya sites with English architecture and draftsman Frederick Catherwood. Their illustrated accounts of the ruins sparked strong popular interest and brought the Maya to world attention. Now, the later 19th century saw the recording and recovery of ethno-historic accounts of the Maya and the first steps in deciphering Maya hieroglyphics. The final 2 decades of the 19th century saw the birth of modern scientific archaeology in the Maya region with the meticulous work of Alfred Maudslay and Teoberto Mailer. Now, by the early 20th century, the Peabody Museum was sponsoring excavations at Copan and the Yucatan Peninsula. In the first 2 decades of the 20th century, advances were made in deciphering the Maya calendar and identifying deities, dates, and religious concepts. Since the 1930s, archaeological exploration increased dramatically with large-scale excavations across the Maya region. Now, in the 1960s, Mayanist J. Eric S. Thompson promoted the ideas that Maya cities were essentially vacant ceremonial centers serving a dispersed population in the forests, and that the Maya civilization was governed by peaceful astronomer priests. These ideas began to collapse with major advances in the decipherment of the script in the late 20th century, pioneered by Heinrich Merlin, Tatiana Proskura, and the Yuri Kornorazov, with breakthroughs in understanding of Maya script since the 1950s. These texts revealed the warlike activities of the classic Maya kings, undermining the view of the Maya as a peaceful people. Now, unlike the Aztecs and the Inca, which I would love to get into, also the Inca civilization, also in the Aztec region too. I would like to get into the Aztecs and the Inca down the line. Maybe that will be another video for next week. Maybe. Unlike the Aztecs and the Inca, the Maya political system never integrated the entire Maya cultural area into a single state or empire. Rather, throughout its history, the Maya area contained a varying mix of political complexity that included both states and chiefdoms. These politics fluctuated greatly in their relationships with each other, and they were engaged in a complex web of rivalries, periods of dominance or submission, vassalage, and alliances, At times, different politics achieved regional dominance, such as Calakmul, Karakul, Mayapan, and Tikal. The first reliably evidenced politics formed in the Maya lowlands in the 9th century BC. Um, during the late pre-classic period, the Maya political system coalesced into a theopolitical form, where elite ideology justified the ruler's authority and was reinforced by public display, ritual, and religion. The divine king was the center of political power, exercising ultimate control over the administrative, economic, judicial, and military functions. The divine authority invested within the ruler was such that the king was able to mobilize both the aristocracy and commoners in executing the huge infrastructure projects, apparently with no police force or standing army. Now, some politics engaged in a strategy of increasing administration and filing administrative posts with loyal supporters rather than blood relatives within a politic mid-ranking population. Centers would have played a key role in managing resources and internal conflict. Now the Maya political landscape was a highly complex, and Maya elite engaged in political intrigue to gain the economic and social advantage over neighbors. Now, in the late Classic, some cities established a long period of dominance over the rather large cities, such as the dominance of Karakul over Naranjo for half a century. Now, in other cases, the loose alliance networks were formed around a dominant city. The border settlements, usually located about halfway between neighboring capitals, often switch allegiance over the course of their history, and at times they acted independently. Now, dominant capitals exacted tribute to the form of luxury items from subjugated population centers. Now, the political power was reinforced by military power, and the capture and humiliation of enemy warriors played an important part in the elite culture. An overriding sense of pride and honor among the warrior aristocracy could lead to extended feuds and vendettas. Now, and this caused political instability and the fragmentation of politics. Now, from the early pre-classic Maya civilization, the Maya society was sharply divided between the elite and the commoners. As population increased over the time, various sectors of society became increasingly specialized, and political organization increasingly complex. By the late Classic period, when populations had grown enormously and hundreds of cities were connected in a complex web of political hierarchies, the wealthy segment of the society multiplied. A middle class may have developed and included artisans, low-ranking priests and officials, merchants and soldiers. Commoners included farmers, servants, laborers, and slaves. According to indigenous histories, and land was held communally by noble houses or clans. Such clans held that the land was the property of the ancestors, and ties between the land and the ancestors were reinforced by the burial of the dead within residual compounds. Now, let's just up here. Hold on. Yeah, hold on a second here. Let me try this again. So there we go. Okay. Now, okay. So, and here's another statue of a Mayan thing. That is the stela from the Tonina, representing the 6th century king Balam Yaksentil. That statue of him. Now the classic Maya role was centered in a royal culture that was displayed in all areas of the classic Mayan art. The king was the supreme ruler, and he held a semi-divine status that made him the mediator between the mortal realm and that of the gods. Now, from the very early ages, in times, kings were especially identified with the young maize god, whose gift of maize was the basis of the Mesoamerican civilization. The Maya royal succession was patrilineal, and royal power only passed to queens when doing otherwise will result in the extinction of the dynasty. Typically, power was passed to the oldest son, A young prince was called a chalk, which means youth. Although this word later came to refer to nobility in general. The royal hair was called Bashak, which means head youth. Um, Various points in the prince's childhood were marked by ritual. The most important was a blood-molding ceremony at age 5 or 6, although being of the royal bloodline was of the utmost importance. The heir also had to be a successful war leader, as demonstrated by taking of captives. The enthronement of a new king was a highly elaborate ceremony involving a series of separate acts that included enthronement upon a jaguar skin cushion, human sacrifice, and receiving the symbols of royal power such as as the headbang bearing a jade representation of the so-called jester god, or elaborate headdress adorned with quetzal feathers, and a scepter representing the king Kawil. Um, Now, shit. Okay. Now, Maya political administration based around the royal court was not bureaucratic in nature, but government was hierarchical, um, and official posts were sponsored by higher-ranking members of the aristocracy. Now, officials tended to be promoted to higher levels of office over their lives. Um, officials are referred to as being owned by their sponsor, and this relationship continued even after the death of the sponsor. The Maya court official was a vibrant and dynamic political institution. Now, there was no universal structure for the Maya royal court. Um, um, but instead, each politically formed a royal court that was suited to its own individual context. Um, now a number of royal and noble titles have been identified by pictographers translating the classic Maya inscriptions. Um, now, a jaw, is usually retranslated as lord or king. In the early classic, an Alja was the ruler of a city. Now later, with increasing social complexity, um, the Alja was a member of the ruling class, and a major city could have more than one, each ruling over different districts. Um, Now paramount rulers distinguished themselves from the extended nobility by prefixing the word Kual to their Alja title. A cool a a Kuyol Ajal was a divine lord, originally confined to the kings of the most prestigious and ancient royal lines. Um, now, Kalamti was a royal title whose exact meaning is not yet deciphered, but it was held only by the most powerful kings of the strongest dynasties. It indicated an overlord or a high king, and it was only in use during the classic period. But by the late classic, the absolute power of the Kuhol Ajo had weakened, and the political system had diversified to include a wider aristocracy that by this time may have expanded disproportionately. Um, Now here's a classic period sculpture of showing the Sojol Achak Max presenting captives before the ruler. It's been Joel. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Um, um, let's see here. I'm trying to get something here. Oh, man. Okay, so No, I don't play any games. Um, no, I'm not, for me, because I'm Jewish, I don't do Hitler. Um, Trump sucks ass. Um, I will sneeze, if there's any dirt or dust in the air. Um, Now I said, Joel, now, yes, I'm Jewish. Um, the Jewish, what, from Jewish? Yeah, my family was all Jewish. A Sajal was ranked below the, was, a Sajal was ranked below the Alja and indicated a, I'm not sure. I'm thinking. I don't think it's Orthodox Jew. I think they were just regular Jews, like where they did the Hanukkah, for the 8 days. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the Orthodox Jew. Um, Now, Esagil was ranked below the Alja and indicated a subservient lord. Esagil would be a lord of a second or third tier site, answering to an Ojal, who may himself have been subservient to a column T. Now, Esagil would often be a war captain or a regional governor, and inscriptions often link the Sajal title to warfare. Uh, nah, I'm not even black, but I wish I was sometimes. No, I don't think it. No, I don't think my family's not German. They're from Romania, they're part. They're from parts of Romania, and they're from parts of the Netherlands. So now a Sajal would often be a war captain or a regional governor, and inscriptions often link the Sajal title to warfare, and they're often mentioned as the holders of war captives. Now, I don't know about that. Now, the word Sajal meant feared one. Now, the titles of Al Sazib and Al Chuhan are both related to scribes. Um, my family is. Um, the Atsazib was a royal scribe, usually a member of the royal family. The Achuhan was the keeper of the holy books, a title that is closely associated with the Al-Jah title. Um, no, I'm 5'4". I'm not 5'6". I'm not 5'6". I'm 5'4". But my family came from Romania and the Netherlands, and they were Jewish. Um, Now I don't know if they were living in another state, in like another country before moving to the Netherlands. No, I've always worn glasses. That's because I had bad eyesight. Um, Not every Jew wears glasses. Um, now the now the also now the Al-Tabib was a royal scribe, usually a member of the royal family, and Al-Chuhan was the keeper of the holy books. Um, Not even close. Um, now now that title is closely associated with the Aljo title, indicating that an Aljo always held the Alchuhan title simultaneously. Um, Not necessarily. Um, Now, other courtly titles, the functions of which are not well understood, were the Alja Kayak, which means Lord of Fire, the Tuhan and the Tusakan. These Now, these last two may be variations on the same title, and Mark Zender has suggested that the holder of this title may have been the spokesman for the ruler. Now, courtly titles are overwhelmingly male-oriented, because mainly when it came to being a ruler in power, they were always male. And now courtly titles are always overwhelmingly male oriented, and in those relatively rare occasions where they are applied to a woman, they appear to be used as honorifics for female royalty. Now, these titled elites were often associated with particular structures in the hieroglyphic inscriptions of classic period titles, indicating that such office holders either owned that structure or that the structure was an important focus for their activities. And Lockcom, our standard bearer, was possibly the only non-elite post holder in the royal court. The Lockcom was only found in larger sites, and they appear to have been responsible for the taxation of local districts. Well, technically I am. Now, different factions may have existed in the royal court. Now the Kuhol Aha and his household would have formed the central power base, but other important groups were the priesthood, the warrior aristocracy, and other aristocratic courtiers. Where ruling councils existed as at Shitsa, Itza, and the Kopan, these Now, these may have formed a additional faction. Now, rivalry between different factions would have led to a dynamic political institutions as compromises and disagreements are played out. Now, in such a setting, public performance was vital. Such performance included Now, commoners are estimated to have compromised over 90% of the population, but relatively little is known about them. These houses were generally constructed from perishable materials. Now, commoners are established, like I said, now, commoners are estimated to have compromised over 90% of the population, but relatively little is known about them. Their houses were generally constructed from perishable materials, and their remains have left little trace in the archaeological record. Now, when it comes to the commoners, some commoner dwellings were raised on low platforms, and these can be identified, but an unknown quantity of commoner houses were not. Such low-status dwellings can only be detected by extensive remote sensing surveys of apparently empty terrain. Now, when it comes to now the range of commoners were broad. It consisted of everyone not of a noble birth, and therefore included everyone from the poorest farmers to wealthy craftsmen and commoners appointed to bureaucratic positions. Now, both my parents are dead, so commoners engaged in essential production activities, which included that of products destined for use by the elite, such as cotton and cocoa, as well as of subsistence crops for their own use. My father died from complications due to diabetes, and my mom had cancer. So now commoners took part in warfare and could advance socially by proving themselves as outstanding warriors. Commoners took part, like I said, took part in warfare, but commoners also paid their taxes to the elite in the form of staple goods such as maize, flour, and game. Yes, my father's mother. No, I've never used the N word. Um, it is likely that hard-working commoners also displayed exceptional skills and initiative, and initiative could become influential members of the Maya society. Yes, I am. I've always been a Jew. Um, Now here, you got the the Jaina Island figurine and the obsidian spearheads with representing the classic lithic core. No, no, I'm not. I do not like Hitler because I'm Jewish. He basically drove my family away from their country. Um, Warfare was a prevalent in the Maya world. Military campaigns were launched for a variety of different reasons, including the control of trade routes, and tribute, raids to take captives, scaling up to the complete destruction of an enemy state. No, Hitler was not pro-Jew. He exterminated all the Jews. Even though Hitler was Jewish himself, but he killed a lot of them. Um, I am a big fan of UFC, but I do not know Bryce Michael. But I do like no, basically he locked him up in gas chambers. Basically, that's really how he killed him. Um, now now little is known about the Maya military organization, the logistics, or training, but warfare is depicted in Maya art from the classic period, and wars and victories are mentioned in hieroglyphic inscriptions. Now, unfortunately, um, the inscriptions do not provide information upon the causes of the war or the form it took. Now, in the 8th and the ninth centuries, intensive warfare resulted in the collapse of the kingdoms in the Pateksa Baton region of western Bhutan. Um, no, I am not. I've never been on the sex offender registry list. Now, now the rapid abandonment of the Aquateca by its inhabitants has provided a rare opportunity to examine the remains of Maya weaponry in situ. Never been. Well, I've never been on the sex offender registry list, and don't plan on being on one. I'm not a Trump supporter, so why would I? So why would I be on the sex offender registry list? Um, now 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 Aquateca was stormed by unknown enemies around 810. Now why would I get away with something that I don't plan on doing? Um, and Aquateca was stormed by unknown enemies around 810 AD, who overcame its formidable defenses and burned the royal palace. Um, the elite inhabitants of the city either fled or were captured and then never returned to collect their abandoned property. Now the inhabitants of the periphery abandoned the site soon after. No, I don't plan on being on the list. Nope, never done it before, so why would I do it now? Um, um, for me, I would never be on the list. I've never been caught. I've never been caught before, so why would I do it now? So if I've never done it before, why would I do it now? That's the thing. Let's go back up here. Um, no, because I've never done it before. I've never molested anybody, so why would I do it? No, I have not. Never done it before. Don't plan on it. Um, the elite inhabitants of the city either fled or were captured, and they never returned to collect their abandoned property. Um, no, I've never self-reported. Nope, never. I don't like Diddy anyway, and I would never do anything like that. The elite inhabitants of the city either fled or were captured, and they never returned to collect. No, I just got pet goldfish. Nope, I don't diddle anybody. Never plan on it. Um, and they never, so like they never returned to collect their abandoned property, but the inhabitants, um, of the periphery abandoned the site soon after. Now, this is an example of an intensive warfare carried out by an enemy in order to eliminate a Maya state rather than subjugate it. Research at Aquateca indicated that classic period warriors were primarily members of this elite. Um, from as early as the pre-classic period, the ruler of a Maya politic was expected to be a distinguished war leader, and they were depicted with trophy heads hanging from his belt. I don't know anything in the Hebrew language, which is what Jewish people speak. I'm not much of a Hebrew person. I don't know Hebrew. Um, I would have to look something up like that. Um, Now, I just speak English and very little Spanish. Um, now, Now in the classic period, I don't know much about interest rates. Um, my girlfriend's black, so I'm not gonna really say much on the black people. Um, so let's see here. Now people want to see a picture of my girl. This is a. Hold on here. I gotta look at my picture here, see if it goes through. Okay, that's not really showing. Let's go back here. Okay, so here's a picture of my girlfriend. Um, and that's the daughter that we So you can see my girlfriend there, and then that was part of my classes. No, it's not. That's not even a man. That's actually my girlfriend Janessa. She's not a man. She's definitely all woman. Um, and she's ghetto as they come. Um, no, it's not. Not even close. Not, nope, that's not. Um, no, I've never been married. Um, but we've been dating. But we've been dating for over a year. No, that's not OJ. I don't. Even though I've never cared for OJ. OJ Simpson. No. Um, no, from us. No, like we were talking about trophy heads. She had a baby from another man, but she's not with that guy anymore. Um, Now, in the classic period, such trophy heads no longer appeared on the king's belt. but the classic period kings are frequently depicted standing over humiliated war captives. Now, right up to the end. Now, her pronouns are she and her. Um, she's always been a woman. Nah, right up to the end of the post-classic period, the Maya kings led as war captains. Yes, yeah. That's probably why I graduated high school, unlike a lot of other people. Um, now the Maya inscriptions from the classic show that the defeated king could be captured, tortured, and sacrificed, but the Spanish recorded that Maya leaders kept track of troop movements and painted books. Um, Now, the outcome of a successful military campaign could vary in its impact on the defeated politic. Now, in some cases, entire cities were sacked and they never resettled, as with Aquateca. Um, Actually, I am in college. That's one of the reasons why I have this. This is from one of my classes, um, where I did the hydraulic. Um, that's one of my books from my class. Um, so yes, I am in college. Um, um, Plant engineering is my major. Not a special ed school. I have never toured, never been outside the United States. Nobody. Um, don't like fast food. Nobody. Um, now, no. Yes, I live in Illinois, and yes, weed is legalized in Illinois. Um, Now, during the contact period, hold on, I might have skipped over something. Yeah, okay. The outcome of a successful military campaign could vary in its impact on the defeated political thing. So, at the least severe end of the scale, the defeated politic would be obligated to pay tribute to the victor. Um, no. Um, Plant engineering has nothing to do with watering a car. Um, what does COVID have to do with this? Um, Now, during the contact period, certain military positions were held by members of the aristocracy, and they were passed on by the patrilineal succession. It's likely. That's not me coughing. Um, um, Now, it is likely that the specialized knowledge inherent in the political military role was taught to the successor, including a strategy, ritual, and war dance. Now, I've never done any dancing, and I don't know if I would do any war dances. Um, Now, the Maya armies of the contact period were highly disciplined, and warriors participated in regular training exercises and drills, which is what they do in the military. Um, Now, every able-bodied adult male was available for military service. Um, Now, Maya states did not maintain standing armies. Warriors were mustered by local officials who reported back to appointed war leaders. Um, Now, most warriors were not full-time, but however, um, okay, so basically Maya states that did not maintain standing armies, but warriors were mustered by local officials who reported back to the appointed war leaders. Um, um, so There were also units of full-time mercenaries who followed permanent leaders. Most warriors were not full-time, however, and they were primarily farmers. The needs of their crops usually came before warfare, but the Maya warfare was not so much aimed at destruction of the enemy as the seizure of captives and plunder. Now, now, now there is some evidence from the classic period that women provided supporting roles in war, but they did not act as military officers, with the exception of those rare ruling queens. Um, by the post-classic, the native chronicles suggest that women occasionally fought in battle. Now here is a carving, like a hieroglyphic and a warrior garb. This is a lintel 16 from the Yax Chilean depicting King Yaxen Lam in warrior garb. Um, Now, when it comes to weapons, um, now as time grew, there is some evidence from the classic period that the women provided supporting roles in war, but they did not act as military officers, with the exception of those rare ruling queens. But occasionally, yeah, nobody really cares about what you have to say, Benson. Um, by the post classic, the native chronicles suggest that a woman occasionally would fight in the battle. Now the Atkalol, which means spear thrower, was introduced to the Maya region by the Tehucan in the early classic. No, I am not. Never been. This was a 0.5 meter long, about a foot and a half stick with a notched end to hold a dart or javelin. The stick was used. The stick was used to launch the missile with more force and accuracy than simply um, hurling it with the arm. Evidence in the form of no, yeah, but I don't eat cereal, so no. Um, Now the stick would be used to launch the missile with more force and accuracy than simply hurling it with the arm. The evidence in the form of a stone blade, points recovered from Aguateca indicate that darts and spears were the primary weapons of the classic Maya warrior. Um, Now, the commoners used blowguns in war, which also served as their hunting weapon. Now, the bow and arrow was used by the ancient Maya for both war and hunting. Although present in the Maya region during the classic period, its use as a weapon of war was not favored. It did not. Even though it was not favored as a weapon, it did not become a common weapon until the post-classic period. The contact period, Maya also used two-hand swords crafted from strong wood with the blade fashioned from inset obsidian. Now, similar to the Aztec, Maya warriors wore body armor in the form of quilted cotton that had been soaked in salt water to soften it. Um, and it just says Red for Ed. I used to work for an elementary school, and I got the shirt from them. Um, of Yes, I can be around children because I'm not a child molester. That's why I'm able. That's why I'm able to be around in school and in the schools and everything, because I'm not a child molester like Trump supporters are. I don't know how to hack. Um, Never been caught before and would not want to, and I've never done it before. So why would I? Um, um, because why would I be caught for something that I've never done? So if I've never done it before, then that means I've never been caught, because I've never done it before. And why would I do it now? And the resultant armor compared favorably to the steel armor worn by the Spanish when they conquered the region. No, I've never committed the crime. Since I've never committed any crime before, that's why I've never been in jail. Now the warriors wore wooden or animal hide shields decorated with feathers and animal skins. Not even close. Trade was a key component of the Maya society. Now, in the development of the Maya civilization, the cities that grew to become the most important usually controlled access to vital trade goods, or the portage routes. Now, cities such as there's a couple cities in the Guatemalan highlands and the Chalchupa in El Salvador. Nope, never been to jail, and I'm never going to. And I don't date old kids. I leave that to the Trump supporters. Nope, I don't own any guns. Now, this was variously controlled access to the sources of obsidian at different points of Maya society. Now, when it comes now the Maya were major producers of cotton, which was used to make the textiles to be traded throughout Mesoamerica. Now, the most important cities in the northern Yucatan Peninsula controlled access to the sources of salt. Now, in the post-classic, the Maya engaged in the flourishing slave trade with wider Mesoamerica. And when it comes to dick size, yes, I'm hacking. Now, when it comes to guns, no. Yes, I ate my girlfriend's ass. Now the Maya engaged in long-distance trade across the Maya region, and across, when it comes to a big dick, no, bigger than that. I don't do Chick-fil-A. They're not my thing. The Maya engaged in long-distance trade across the Maya region, and across greater Mesoamerica and beyond. As an illustration, you also have in a flourishing slave trade. They also flourished in a slave trade with wider Mesoamerica. Yes, I ate my girlfriend's ass. I'm more of a Mexican food and Chinese food type of guy. No, I'm not. But anyway, I still have a big dick. Nope. I eat my girlfriend's ass every day. So as an illustration, an early classic Maya merchant quarter has been identified at the distant metropolis of the Tehucan in central Mexico. She's at work, so she won't be home for like another several hours. Within Mesoamerica beyond the Maya area, the trade routes particularly focused on central Mexico and the Gulf Coast. Nope, not even close. My girlfriend's all ass, and she's all tits and pussy. Yep. Now within Mesoamerica beyond the Maya area, trade routes particularly focused on central Mexico and the Gulf Coast. Now, in the early classic, Chichen Itza and was at the hub of the extensive trade network that imported gold dust from Colombia and Panama. Now, they imported gold dust from Colombia and Panama and turquoise from the Los Cerrillos, New Mexico. long-distance trade of both luxury and utilitarian goods was probably controlled by the royal family. Nope, not even close. Just like anything, if you want to call it that. Now, prestige goods obtained by trade were both used for consumption by the city's ruler and as luxury gifts to consolidate the loyalty of vassals and allies. Now, trade routes not only supplied physical goods, they facilitated the movement of people and ideals throughout the Mesoamerica. Shifts in trade routes occurred within the rise and fall of important cities in the Maya region. And they had been identified in every major reorganization of the Maya civilization. Now, such as the rise of the pre-classic Maya civilization, the transition to the classic, and the terminal classic collapse. Nope. She's got godparents to watch for her. And of course, I'm able to watch the kid. I just don't. Both. I eat her ass before I go to work, and I eat her ass when I get off of work. I actually do if I ever had one of my own. Since the kid isn't mine, I don't watch it. Of course, Trump supporters are pitiful because they don't do any work. Now, trade routes, like I said, not only supplied physical goods, but they facilitated the movement of people and ideals throughout Mesoamerica. Now, trade routes not only supplied physical goods, they facilitated the movement of people and ideals throughout Mesoamerica. Shifts in trade routes occurred with the rise and fall of important cities in the Maya region, and they have been identified in every major reorganization of the Maya civilization, such as the rise of pre-classic Maya civilization, the translation to the classic, and the terminal classic collapse. Now, when it comes to the Spanish conquest, it did not immediately terminate all Maya trading activity. No, they just fucked their sister. Now, when it comes to when it comes to the Spanish conquest, it did not immediately terminate all Maya trading activity, but for example, the contact period, the Manchi Choi traded the prestige crops of cocoa, annetto, and vanilla into colonial verapaz. Now, little is known of the Maya merchants, although they are depicted on Maya ceramics in elaborate noble dress. So at least some were members of the elite. During the contact period, the Maya nobility I've never cursed up the kid, but I did knock out six teeth out of this one kid's mouth by kicking him in the mouth with my shoe. Now, little is known of like I said, of the Maya merchants. Now, little is known, like I said, of Maya merchants, although they are depicted on Maya ceramics. So at least some members were the elite, but during the contact period, Maya nobility took part in a long-distance trading expedition. The majority of traders were middle class. This was back when I was in school. I think I was in the 5th grade. No, this was like in the 5th or 6th grade when it happened. Now, during the contact period, the Mayan nobility took part in a long-distance trading expedition. No, I did not. I wasn't eating ass in the 6th grade. Um, it wasn't until I don't think I started eating ass until I was in my sophomore year of high school. Um, no, the majority of the traders were middle class, but were largely engaged in local and regional trade rather than the prestigious long distance trading that was reserved for the elite. Um, Now, the traveling of merchants into dangerous foreign territory was likened to a passage throughout the underworld. The patron de- Now the patron deities um now the traveling of merchants into dangerous territory was likened to a passage through the underworld. You got patron deities of merchants were two underworld gods carrying backpacks. Now, when the merchants traveled, they painted themselves black like their patron gods, and they went heavily armed. Um, Now the Maya had no pack animals, so all trade goods were carried on the backs of porters when going overland. Now, if the trade route followed a river to the coast, then goods were transported in canoes. Um, a substantial Maya trading canoe made from a large hollowed out tree trunk was encountered off Honduras on Christopher Columbus's fourth voyage. The canoe was 2.5 meters, which was 8 feet long, and it was broad and was powered by 25 rowers. Um, um, this is how they were able to ship their trades. Um, the trade goods carried included cocoa, obsidian, ceramics, textiles, and copper bells and axes. Um, Basically, I never curb stomped them. Basically, the kid was an asshole, and I kicked him in his mouth, and basically I knocked out 6 of his teeth. Um, um, Now coca was used as a currency, although not exclusively, and its value was such that counterfeiting occurred by removing the flesh of the pod and stuffing it with dirt or avocado rind. Now, the marketplaces, because you do have marketplaces where you can go sell stuff at. Now, marketplaces are difficult to identify in the arche- in the archaeologic in the archaeologically. Um, However, the Spanish reported a thriving market economy when they arrived in the region. Um, at some classic period cities, archaeologists have tentatively identified formal arcade-style masonry architecture and parallel alignments of scattered stones as the permanent foundations of market stalls. Um, a 2007 study compared soils from a modern Guatemalan market to a proposed ancient market at Chunchuc Mill. Unusually high levels of zinc and phosphorus at both sites indicated a smaller food production and vegetable sales activity. None. So the calculated density of market stalls at Chunchuc Mill strongly suggests that a thriving market economy already existed in the early classic. Archaeologists have tentatively identified marketplaces at an increasing number of Maya cities by means of combination of archaeology and soil analysis. When the Spanish arrived, the post-classic um, I but that depends on what it is. So when the Spanish arrived, the post-classic cities in the highlands had markets and permanent plazas with officials on hand to settle disputes and force rules and to collect any taxes. Oh, damn! The Chicago Cubs and Cincinnati Reds look like they're going to be talking. They're playing already. Damn, I didn't think they were starting this early. I'm a Cubs fan and a Bulls fan when it comes to sports. Um, Now here's another stone carving. This elaborately carved wooden lintel 3 from the Tikal Temple, and then you got a jade funerary mask. Um, oh, those are pretty cool. That is a jade funerary mask. Um, these were used when they did funeral rites. like funeral marches and everything. That's what it's a jaded color. Now, Maya art is essentially the art of the royal court. It's most exclusively concerned with the Maya elite and their world. Now, Maya art was crafted from both perishable and non-perishable materials. And Maya art was crafted from both perishable and non-perishable materials, and it served to link the Maya to their ancestors. Now, although surviving Maya art represents only a small proportion of the art that the Maya created, it represents a wider variety of subjects than any other art tradition in America. Now, Maya art has many regional styles and is unique to the ancient America and bearing native text, or narrative text. Basically, the finest surviving Maya art dates to the late classic period. Now, the Maya exhibited a preference for the color green or the blue-green, and used the same word for the colors blue and green. Correspondingly, they placed high value on apple green jade and other green stones, associating them with the sun god Kanish Alju. They sculpted artifacts that included the fine tesserae and beads to carved heads weighing about 9 pounds. The Maya nobility practiced dental modification, and some lords wore uncrusted jade in their teeth. Now, the mosaic funerary mask could also be fashioned from jade, such as that of the Kanish Janab Pakal, king of Palenque. I don't even know how to do all that. Let's go down here. Now you got some other stuff here. This is other statues. You got early classic wooden figurine and may have supported a mirror. The eccentric Flint in a museum at Brussels. Now Maya milestone sculpture emerged into the archaeological record as a fully developed tradition. This, like I said, this goes on and on and on. That's not a Roblox. Now this goes on and on. I might not read the whole thing today. I might do a part 2 on this, and just pick it up where I left off at. I just have to write it down. As you can see here, we are only at the art portion, and this also covers their architecture, their language, their writing and literacy, mathematics, calendar, astronomical region and mythology, the agriculture, Maya sites, genetics, museum collections, and it stops at museum collections. Like I said, this goes on, and I might not continue all of it today. I might pick it up next week. What movie is it? So we'll pick it up where it picks up in architecture, and we'll just continue this portion on. So Maya stone sculpture emerged into the archaeological record as a fully developed tradition, suggesting that it may have evolved from a tradition of sculpting wood. Because of the biodegradability of wood, the corpus of Maya woodwork has almost entirely disappeared. The few wooden artifacts that did remain have survived include three-dimensional sculptures and hieroglyphic panels. The stone Maya stelae are widespread in city sites anyway. I've never done a super chat, and I know they have them, but I don't think I have enough subscribers for it. Now, stone sculptures also took other forms, such as the limestone relief panels at Palenque and Piedras Negras. At Yaxchillan, Dos Palos, Copan, and other sites, stone stairways were decorated with sculpture. The hieroglyphic stairway at Copan compromises the longest surviving Maya hieroglyphic text, and it consists of 2,200 individual glyphs. Now the largest Maya sculpture consisted of architectural facades crafted from stucco. The rough form was laid out in a plain plaster base coating on the wall, and the three-dimensional form was built up using stone walls. Finally, this was coated with stucco and molded into the finished form. I do one video a week. Now was laid out on a plaster base coating on the wall, and the three-dimensional form was built upon using small stones. Finally, this was coated with stucco and molded into the finished form. Human body forms were first modeled in stucco, and with their costumes added afterwards. The final stucco sculpture was then brightly painted. Giant stucco masks were used to adorn temple facades for the late pre-classic, and such decoration continued in the classic period. I don't do that many videos a week because I want to get to know my audience. So I start with one video a week before doing anything. It's not really a beard. It's not fully grown. Doesn't have to be. Now here's some other stuff here. You got a stucco mask adorning the early classic substructure of Tikal of the Tikal Temple, and then you got the late classic painted mural at Bonampak. Yesterday. Now the Maya had a long tradition of mural painting. Rich polychrome murals have been excavated at San Bartolo, dating to around 300 and 200 BC. Now, the walls were coated with plaster, and polychrome designs were painted onto the smooth finish. I don't have to jack off when my girl does it for me. My PE teacher never did anything like that. So no, I'm not a Trump supporter. I don't know if anybody on my live feed is, but I'm not. Now the Maya had a long tradition of mural painting. Like I said, rich polychrome murals have been excavated at San Bartolo. Now walls were coated with plaster and polychrome designs. And they were painted onto the smooth finish. The majority of such murals have not survived, but early classic tombs painted in cream, red, and black have been excavated at Caracol. Walls were coated with, like I said, with plaster, and polychrome designs were painted onto a smooth finish. But the majority of such murals have not survived because, you know, my girlfriend's private. She doesn't even like being on camera. Now, but early classic tombs painted in cream, red, and black have been excavated at Caracol, Rio Azul, and Tikal. Among the best preserved murals are a full-size series of late classic paintings in Bonampak. Now, no, she's at work. My girlfriend is at work right now. She will not be home until later on today. No, I don't think that's even true. I don't even go to clubs. Now, Flint, Church, and Obsidian all served utilitarian purposes in Maya culture, but many pieces were finely crafted into forms that were never intended to be used as any tools. Now, Eccentric flints are among the finest lithic artifacts produced by the ancient Maya, and they were technically very challenging to produce, requiring considerable skill on the part of the artisan. Large obsidian eccentrics can measure over 12 inches in length, which is like a foot. And their actual form varies considerable, but they generally depict human, animal, and geometric forms associated with the Maya region. The eccentric flints show a great variety of forms, such as crescents, crosses, snakes, and scorpions. The largest and most elaborate examples display multiple human heads, with minor heads sometimes branching it off from a larger one. Now you also got ceramics. Now these are this one is a painted ceramic vessel from Sakol, and this is a ceramic figurine from the Jaina Island around 650 to 800 AD. Now many textiles Now, the Maya textiles are very poorly represented in the archaeological record because there has not been many people keeping it up to date. Although by comparison with other pre-Columbian cultures such as the Aztecs and the Andean region, it is likely that they were very high value items. Scraps of textile have been recovered, but the best evidence for textile art is where they are represented in other media such as painted murals or ceramics. But the best evidence for textile art is when they are represented in other media such as painted murals or ceramics. Such secondary representations show the elite of the Maya court adorned with the sumptuous cloths. Generally, these would have been cotton, but jaguar pelts and deer hides are also shown. Now, let's see how much more I gotta go on this. Okay, so ceramics are the most commonly surviving type of Maya art. The Maya had no knowledge of the potter wheel, and Maya vessels were built by coiling rolled strips of clay into the desired form. Now, the Maya pottery was not glazed, although it often had a fine finish touching produced by burnishing. Maya ceramics are painted with clay slips blended with minerals and colored clays. Ancient Maya firing techniques have yet to be replicated. Now, a quantity of extremely fine ceramic figurines have been now when it comes to the now they stand from 10 to 25 centimeters, which is 3 feet to 9 inches in length, 3 inches to 9 inches in length, high, and they were hand modeled with exquisite detail. Not for a while, the ilk-style polychrome ceramic corpus, including the finely painted plates and cylindrical vessels, originated in late classic the Molto de San Jose. It includes a set of features such as hieroglyphics painted. Too expensive. Not for a long time. I've smoked off and on, but not for a while because the prices are getting outrageous. It includes a set of features such as the hieroglyphics painted in a pink or pale red color and scenes with dancers wearing masks. Now, one of the most distinctive features in the realistic representation of subjects as they appeared in life, the subject matter of the vessels includes courtly life from the Peten region in the 8th century AD, such as diplomatic meetings, feasting, bloodletting, scenes of warriors, and the sacrifice of prisoners of war. No, I don't raw dog kids. Don't even plan on it. Bone, both human and animal, was also sculpted. Human bones may have been trophies or relics of ancestors. Now, the Maya valued spondylus shells, and they worked with them to remove the white exterior and spines to reveal the fine orange interior. I don't know. I've never been with a lesbian, so I wouldn't know. Um, around the 10th century AD, metallurgy arrived in Mesoamerica from South America, and the Maya began to make small objects in gold, silver, and copper. Now, the Maya generally hammered steel sheet metal into such objects such as beads. Now, the metallurgy arrived in Mesoamerica from South America, and the Maya began to make small objects in gold, silver, and copper. The Maya generally hammered sheet metal into objects such as beads, bells, and discs. In the last centuries before the Spanish conquest, the Maya began to use the lost wax method to cast small metal pieces. Now one poorly studied area of the Maya folk art is graffiti. Graffiti is a very popular thing. Now, additional graffiti is not part of the planned decoration, but it was incised into the stucco of interior walls, floors, and benches in a wide variety of buildings. Now, including temples, residences, and storerooms, graffiti has been recorded at 51 Mayan sites, particularly clustered in a wide variety of buildings, including temples and residences and storerooms. And like I said, graffiti has been graffiti has been recorded at 51 Mayan sites, particularly clustered in the Piton Basin and the southern Campeche and the Chiapas region of the northwestern Yucatan. At Tikal, where a great quantity of graffiti has been recorded, the subject matter includes drawings of temples, people, deities, animals, banners, litters, and thrones. Graffiti was often inscribed haphazardly, with drawings overlapping each other and display a mix of crude, untrained art and examples by artists familiar with the classic artistic conventions. Now I'm going to leave it there and pick this up next week, but I want to show you a couple things, or tell you a couple things also. So next week is next Saturday, June 7th. So next week I won't do a video because I'm going to go to a concert. So I'm going to be at a concert, so I won't be here. So I won't be home to do a video, and I'm not going to have my computer with me. On June 23rd, I will not have a video up because that's my birthday, and I would not be here for my birthday. So yep, June 23rd is my birthday, so I'm not going to be here for it. Oh fuck. This is one of my bathrooms here. This house is fucking huge. I'm gonna go see if we have anybody in here. See if anybody's in here. Nope, nobody's in here. Okay. That's just my hot tub. In one of the bathrooms. Awesome, ain't it? This thing does work. It's got bubbles and everything that shoots out when you sit down in it. So that is about it for this week. And then in a couple of weeks I'll pick up my video and go from there. So you see that there. That's about all for today. Nah. Basically, it's one of the nicest houses I've been in. It's a 7-bedroom, 5-bath house, so it's good. There's something else I wanted to show you, and I know I have it up here. There's an app. There's an app that I use. Let's go here for a minute. God, I'm getting old. Fuck. there's an app that I use similar to TikTok, but I don't use TikTok. This app is called Flip. And Flip will pay you to post your videos. Let's go up here. Let's see if I can have it here. Yeah, so right here. And right here, off of Flip, I made $14.22 off of posting several videos. These are just random TikTok videos. Are similar to TikTok anyway, even though I don't use TikTok. So this app Flip will post, you film a video. So you post a video similar to a TikTok, and they actually pay you. You don't have to have subscribers. You don't have to have any you don't have to have any subscribers or a big following. You could just post a video and make money. So if you wanted to check me, no, it's not. So anyway, if you wanted to follow me on this, you can. You don't have to. I'm not suggesting it. But anyway, TikTok has been now posting TikTok might be illegal, but Flip is not. I think they got rid of TikTok. So but TikTok, I don't think they use anymore. So if you wanted to follow me on this, you can. I don't do any kid stuff like that. No, these are not. This is not kid stuff. So if you wanted to follow me on Flip, you can. It's that's not Kid Flip. No, Flip is just an app where you post videos. It could be just anything: random entertainment, comedy, reviews, shopping. That's my bed, eh? It's just my computer, my coffee, a bag of chips, and dip. I don't do videos of kids. I just post videos of what I like to do. So that is about all for this week. Like I said, next week I'll be at a concert called Emma and the Dilemma. If you don't know who they are a band. They're a band where they sing. No, she comes over. We don't stay together. Now with me, like I said, next week I'll be in a band seeing Emma. I'll be be seeing a band called Emma and the Dilemma. So I won't be here for that. If you don't know who Emma and the Dilemma is, probably in a couple weeks. Because like I said, this weekend coming up next Saturday, I'm gonna be at a concert, and then probably a few days after that, probably on the 10th. The band is called Emma and the Dilemma. They do what they call pop rock. They do a mixture of pop and rock music together. I don't even know what OF is. So like I said, I'll leave you guys until next week. It's called Emma and the Dilemma. So let's see here. No, I don't do that. No, I don't have an OnlyFans. Let's go back here and I'll show you. The band I'm going to see. You can type it on here on the Facebook. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Now Emma and the Dilemma posts a lot of videos. I saw her like a couple weeks ago at the Stadium Club. But this is Emma. She's the lead singer of the band. And her performances are and her now this is Emma, and she's the lead singer of the band Emma and the Dilemma, and she does diva rock, pop, and soul music. And her performance is kind of like, no, I don't date white women. She's got a boyfriend anyway, and no, I don't date white women. But her performances are kind of like risque, meaning kind of sexualized. So, like I said, I'll leave you guys. I'll leave you guys for right now. I'm gonna be back in a couple weeks, and I'll pick up on the second portion of that video for the Maya civilization, because it was kind of long. I went from 250 pounds in 2023 to now weighing 150. Nope. So I'll pick you guys up. So I'll pick up next week, a couple weeks from now, probably in the 10th. I know some people are joining in late, but they would have to watch the live stream from the beginning to pick up everything I've talked about. So I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, even if it's a live stream. And stuff like that. So hope you guys enjoy.